I've spent nights replaying one sentence in my head, wondering if I said too much, too little, or nothing at all. It's strange how a single moment can loop endlessly, long after it's gone. That's the quiet curse of overthinking. Reliving moments no one else remembers. Psychologists say, overthinking is not a personality flaw, but a defense mechanism. The mind believes that by analyzing every possibility, it can avoid pain. But in truth, it creates the very suffering it's trying to prevent. Overthinkers are often deeply intelligent. Their brains process more information, connect more dots, and imagine more outcomes than most people ever consider. But that same intelligence turns against them when there's no off switch. Every small decision becomes a mental chess game. What if I choose wrong? What if they misunderstand? The mind becomes a battlefield of hypothetical disasters, and peace feels like a luxury only others can afford. Most overthinkers weren't born this way. They became this way shaped by early experiences of unpredictability, criticism, or rejection. When you've been hurt for getting it wrong, your brain learns to triple-check every move. It's not about perfectionism, it's about protectionism. The overthinker's brain constantly runs simulations to ensure emotional safety. If I can predict what goes wrong, maybe I can prevent it. Neuroscience shows that overthinkers have hyperactive activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and self-reflection. It's great for problem-solving, terrible for peace of mind. That's why they can't just stop thinking. Their brain is wired to analyze. It's not a switch they can flip, but a pattern deeply carved by repetition and fear. The irony is that overthinkers crave clarity more than anyone. But the more they think, the foggier things become. They drown in possibilities, unsure which one is real. Most people move on from mistakes after a day. Overthinkers don't. They dissect every word, tone, and facial expression, searching for hidden meanings that were never there. This constant mental analysis creates decision fatigue, a condition where the brain becomes too tired to decide at all. That's why overthinkers often procrastinate. It's not laziness. It's exhaustion. The worst part, they're aware of it. They know they're spiraling. They know it's irrational. But that awareness doesn't stop the thoughts. It just adds guilt to the cycle, so they smile in public and suffer in silence. Because how do you explain that your biggest battle is inside your own head? Overthinkers are masters at emotional pattern recognition. They notice details others miss, a tone shift, a delay in reply, a change in body language. But this sensitivity often becomes self-torture. That hyper-awareness creates false alarms. The brain reads danger in normal situations, convincing them that something's wrong when it's just anxiety wearing logic's mask. According to cognitive psychology, this is called catastrophic thinking, when the mind automatically jumps to the worst-case scenario. As a form of emotional insurance, overthinkers often have deep empathy. They imagine every side of the story, every person's emotion, and every possible consequence. But empathy without boundaries is a heavy burden. They think about what others feel, yet rarely consider their own feelings valid. Their mind is a constant courtroom, and they're both the judge and the accused. This self-blame loop often comes from childhood experiences where love was conditional. I'm only safe when I do everything right. So as adults, they keep replaying that rule in every interaction. Even simple things, a delayed text, a quiet room, a missed call, become evidence of rejection in their minds. The silence screams louder than words, and when they can't find answers, they invent them. Because uncertainty is more terrifying than being wrong. In relationships, overthinkers often apologize too much. Not because they're always wrong, but because peace means more to them than pride. They over-explain, over-clarify, and over-care. They crave reassurance, not attention. They just want to know they're not crazy for feeling everything so deeply. But here's the hard truth. Reassurance never lasts. It soothes the surface, but feeds the addiction. The mind learns that relief only comes from more thinking. That's why true healing doesn't come from finding answers. It comes from learning to tolerate not knowing. Stillness terrifies an overthinker, because silence leaves room for self-doubt. They fill every quiet moment with mental noise, anything to avoid hearing their own uncertainty. But the truth is, thoughts aren't facts. Most overthinkers mistake mental noise for reality. The mind whispers fears, and they start believing them. Cognitive therapists call this thought fusion. when you become so entangled with your thoughts that you forget you're the one thinking them. Detachment begins when you realize your thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky of your mind. You can watch them without chasing them. Meditation, journaling, and mindful breathing are not cliches. They retrain your brain to pause between thought and reaction, to observe instead of drown. Overthinking is often a symptom of low trust, not just in others, but in life itself. A belief that control equals safety, but the more you try to control, the more chaos you create. Peace begins when you stop demanding certainty and start building trust in your ability to handle whatever comes. Many overthinkers are drawn to philosophy, psychology, and self-improvement, not for curiosity, but for safety. They're searching for the rulebook that makes life predictable, but life is not a puzzle to solve, it's a mystery to experience. You can't think your way into peace, you have to feel your way into it. The truth is, overthinking gives an illusion of progress. It feels like doing something, but in reality, it's emotional paralysis, disguised as productivity. The mind says, if I can understand it fully, I'll feel better. But healing doesn't come from understanding. It comes from acceptance. You can't outthink pain. You can only outgrow it. That means letting go of the need to control outcomes and starting to live with uncertainty as a friend, not an enemy. Overthinkers are not broken. They're overprotective. Their mind just learned to survive by anticipating pain. What they need now is safety, not silence. Healing starts when you forgive yourself for not knowing everything. When you stop punishing yourself for the mistakes that made you human, it's not your fault that your mind races. It's your nervous system trying to keep you safe. That means you don't need fixing. You need calming. You calm the mind by giving it proof of safety. Grounding exercises, slow breathing, small acts of self-trust. You rebuild peace by proving that not everything needs control. One of the hardest truths is realizing that clarity doesn't always come before peace. Sometimes peace has to come first, when you stop demanding every answer. You start noticing beauty again, the kind that thinking too much used to blind you from. Silence stops feeling dangerous. It starts feeling sacred. The mind finally rests not because it solved everything, but because it stopped fighting itself. You'll never stop thinking, but you can learn to stop believing every thought. That's where freedom begins. The goal isn't to empty the mind. It's to create space between thought and self, to see that you are the watcher, not the worry. People who overthink are often the most caring, intuitive, and self-aware souls. They just haven't learned to turn their intelligence inward with kindness. That's what healing really means, not becoming less thoughtful, but more compassionate toward your thoughts. The moment you stop analyzing your worth and start accepting your presence, the cycle begins to break. Because peace doesn't come from thinking less. It comes from finally realizing you were never meant to figure everything out, just to live it.